Product provided by Nintendo. Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon aren't necessarily sequels to last year's Pokemon Sun and Moon, but rather director's cuts, bonus editions, or enhanced editions of those previous titles. This new pair of Pokemon games add in a bit new story elements, refine some of the gameplay from the previous entries, and add in some new features in an attempt to make the Ultra Pokemon experience. Let's see if these newly added features make the game worth double dipping if you already played Sun and Moon last year, or at least are worth picking up for the first time. Just like Pokemon Sun and Moon last year, Ultra Sun and Moon takes you on a journey through the Alola region. This region is made up of 4 islands that take on aesthetic themes and influences from Pacific Islander culture. It's similar to the original Sun and Moon, though you'll find new buildings and locations. Still, about 85% of the region remains intact. As the protagonist trainer, you intend to challenge the island trials for each of the sections of the region. These replace traditional gym leaders with trial captains instead, and they lead up to giant totem Pokemon battles. There's now a total of 8 trials to complete, and those that are coming back from the previous game have at least some sort of remix or a new totem Pokemon to make the game feel slightly different than before. You'll find that a lot of the story from the original pair of games are in this new pair with some modifications thanks to the new legendary Pokemon focus on Necrozma, and the introduction of the Ultra Recon Squad. Both of these additions change up a lot of the endgame for Ultra Sun and Moon and completely alters a lot of the motivations of characters from Sun and Moon. In that aspect, a lot of the first half of the game will be pretty much the same story-wise, but things start to really change up in the second half. One of the more vital changes to the story is the bigger emphasis on Lily's story arc. Though it was already pretty good in the original Sun and Moon, Lily definitely gets a bit more time to shine in Ultra Sun and Moon, and these versions are better because of it. On the other hand, some of the changes to character motivations can be hit or miss now because of these changes. While it's hard to say which story was better overall, I can say that some parts of Ultra Sun and Moon were better than the previous ones, and some parts of Sun and Moon were better than the newer version. Since this is a bonus edition of sorts for Pokemon Sun and Moon, I'm going to try to focus mainly on the gameplay changes rather than just re-reviewing all the features I covered last year. First off, some of the hurdles from the gameplay in last year's games are still found in this game. For some reason, we still don't have the option to say, yes, I know how to throw a Pokeball, please don't make me watch this tutorial again, twice if I pick up both versions of the game. Now I do want to note that the game does speed up the dialogue a bit more, but it was already pretty slow to begin with, so while the change is appreciated, it's not the biggest improvement. The Rotom Pokedex is back, but he's a bit more useful now. From time to time he'll ask you questions at the bottom of the 3DS screen, and it honestly became slightly annoying, almost like having a little Legend of Zelda Navi in the game. Talkative sidekick aside, he's now able to grant you some bonus stat buffs by playing some minigames. These rewards can be anything from a bonus that earns you more experience in a battle, to something that speeds up an egg's hatching time. The rewards were really useful, I just wish it wasn't as annoying to get them. One of the highlighted new features in these versions of the games was the parallel universes. Using wormholes, you can travel to other dimensions and battle legendary rare Pokemon. It sounds really cool, and it is, until you start traveling to them. In an odd game design choice, it doesn't let you use the circle pad to control your character movement in the wormholes. Instead, you're forced to use the gyro controls, and that can be kind of a clunky feeling endeavor. Finally, once you reach the legendary Pokemon, the new environment pretty much just acts as a really cool intro to the battle. There isn't an area to explore or anything, rather it's just a very lavish staircase or path to the legendary Pokemon. Now don't get me wrong, meeting and battling these legendaries are really cool, I just wish that the experience and the build up to it was a bit better. The postgame has also been beefed up quite a bit, with Team Rocket returning as Rainbow Rocket. This part of the game lets you tackle on enemies from not only Sun and Moon, but previous games in the series. It's a really cool throwback for those of you that grew up battling Giovanni or perhaps Team Magma and Team Aqua. Adding on to the new battle features is the battle agency found in the Festival Plaza. Here you can rent Pokemon to battle against other players. I found this mode to be surprisingly really fun. It's sort of like the equivalent of 2 players choosing random in Super Smash Bros. And then having a sparring match. It's a fun little challenge. Overall, the new features add in bonus mid-game content as well as post-game content that fleshes out the campaign and gives you some extra things to do after the credits have rolled. Sure, there are some things that I wish were still more refined, like the introduction of the game that still forces you through tutorials, even though this is I don't know how many number of Pokemon games already we're into, most of us probably already know how to throw a Pokeball. While Ultra Sun and Moon still run off the same engine as last year's game, some of the assets have been slightly altered for the better. Some of the environments, for example, have nicer looking textures and environment effects. On the other hand, I feel like some of these changes will only feel noticeably better if you remember the exact same specific layouts of Sun and Moon. I feel like the big cinematic new set pieces will be the wormhole sections that lead you to legendary Pokemon. They usually look really fantastic, although it's sad that they don't really offer much of an area to explore. These introductions to the legendaries are visual eye candy though. These enhanced editions of Sun and Moon are still some of the best looking games on the system, though the faults of last year's games are still here. You can't turn on 3D at all in this game, and there's also framerate drops if you're playing with more than 2 Pokemon at the same time. The framerate drops are more significant in the older 3DS hardware. If you're running either the new 3DS hardware or the new 2DS hardware, the framerate drops are still there, but they're less noticeable and more smooth than the older hardware. A nice new visual addition to the game is the Photo Club that lets you take posed pictures of your Pokemon. It's a nice little touch and it looks really cool. It also helps that this tends to run at a smoother framerate than the lower framerate camera shot spots. Now I don't think there's much to say about the audio design from what I said last year. It's still the same stellar track from last year's game that's intact in this version, however a few new tracks and remix tracks have been added to play along with some of the new story elements in the game. If you enjoyed a lot of the chill mellow vibes of the Alola region before, you're going to continue to enjoy them in these tracks too. Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon are very much the definitive edition versions of Pokemon Sun and Moon. These new versions of the game refine some of last year's gameplay while adding in some new features, extra post-game content, and changing up the story. The story can be better and at times worse depending on the way you look at it. Some of the character arcs seem stronger in this version of the game while other characters' motivations make them feel weaker too. In general though, there's no doubt that this is the best version of Sun and Moon available right now. If you've never played the original Sun and Moon before, skip those games and pick up these instead for a more wholesome experience. However, if you've already played the original Sun and Moon before, this is a tougher sale. The new features and story are cool, but you really won't truly experience the greater effects of those changes until the second half of the game. This pretty much means that veteran players have to replay a lot of the same game to reach those changes in the new versions of the game. At that point, having to replay half of the same game again for those new features and story elements, I don't really think it's worth the double dip, and honestly, unless you're a diehard Pokemon fan, I think you're just better off with the original games if you already have them. That does it for my review of Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon. Overall, they're really good enhanced editions of last year's games, though I think like many of you out there, I wish this was a sequel and not just an enhanced edition, more like Pokemon Black and White 2 rather than Pokemon Emerald or Pokemon Platinum. But let me know what you guys think of the games in the comment section down below, and if you have any questions about the games that I may have missed in this review, feel free to ask me in the comment section down below. As always, thank you all very much for watching, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one.